This is Corolla DeVille, and you're watching Inkwife TV. Hello, YouTube. Today we are going to tattoo some flowers and a bee on an arm. This piece is partially black and gray, but it has a little bit of color in it too. So we're going to combine the use of heavy line weight with very, very light, almost no line weight in these different shadows and details and that we're putting into this tattoo. So first thing to do is to take my 5-round liner and outline everything that is going to have a bold outline, which I did at the bottom. Before the sunflower and the chrysanthemum, those are going to be softer. The sunflower will be colored. The chrysanthemum is going to stay black and gray, but nevertheless, it's going to have a softer outline than the other little black and gray pieces that are going to be around the outside. So anyway, to outline the sunflower, I very lightly, quickly gray washed an outline onto the back of those petals because I don't want them to have that heavy black outline like the little detailed leaves and berries have at the bottom and top of the tattoo. So you see the sunflower is done, and now we're going to add that hard outline to the honeysuckle up at the top. I'm using the same needle for all this. It's a 5-round liner, extra tight. So it's thin, more like a 3-round liner, but because it's 5, it'll hold ink a little bit better and make a slightly more solid line than a 3-round liner would have. I'm not very partial to using 3-round liners. For some reason, I have a hard time controlling them, and when I use them, they wobble. A lot of artists can use those smaller 3-round liners and single needles, but it's just not my strong point. So I would prefer to use something that's just tight instead of having less needles. I just want those needles to be a little tighter together so you still get that fine line, but it's more saturated, and in my opinion, it's easier to control. It doesn't wobble around quite as much. Once all of those extra little detailed leaves are done up there, I put a quick outline into the chrysanthemum petals. Yeah, and when I'm working with this gray liner, with the gray wash, it goes much faster than when you're trying to put those solid black lines in, because it doesn't have to be as deep, and it can be a little quicker. This little bee is so cute, and I love doing, tattooing little insects because there's so many wonderful little details on them and textures. He's going to have a little color later, but for right now, we just had to get all of his little fur and details and wings put in there. All right, so all of the lines have been put in, and like I said before, the chrysanthemum is going to be a very soft gray wash. It's kind of like a secondary flower. The sunflower will be the main one, as it is going to be all colored, but this chrysanthemum is kind of secondary, so it is going to stay all black and gray, and we will get that one shaded first because I generally, not always, but generally prefer to put my shadows in before I head into any color on the tattoo. The reason being is, sometimes you do have to put dark ink in after you put light ink in, but you always risk that it will stain some of the light areas a little bit. So as a general rule, I prefer to work from dark to light. But like I said, there are some situations where you have to do it backwards. But with this one, we're definitely going to follow that normal routine of working from our dark shades into our light shades. When the chrysanthemum had all of its shading put in, I took a 5-round liner and added some quick dotted details into the leaves and into some of the berries and the honeysuckle up in the top left-hand corner. That right there, what you saw of me shading in the leaf, that was all the decent footage that was in this video. My hand was pretty much in the way for everything else. So moving on, we're now adding some shadow and black, a little bit of black into the center of the sunflower. And I wanted I don't usually like to have black shadows in flowers because it contrasts too. It's too much, but a little bit in this sunflower felt like it would be appropriate, just so I have a few extra dark background shadows into it. But too much gray, too much black and gray would change the colors of the yellows and oranges, so I'm being very light with any black and gray that I added into the sunflower. Once those shadows were dropped in, I went back and began to apply my dark brown to the center of the flower, and then went and expanded on all the shadows that I had made using the dark brown, which, the dark brown will go over the black and gray, give it a little more texture, more depth, so it's not so black. But dark brown makes a very good shadow to put in the background, to add depth to things that are yellow and orange. A little black is okay, but you don't want much because, like I said, it will change the tone of the yellows and the oranges, make them more gray and flat. So more of the background shadow I want to be brown instead of a hard black or too much gray wash. Once all the dark brown is in, I'm using a rusty orange as the medium tone, and then we will lay our various shades of yellow on top of that. When you're tattooing a flower, you're just building layers on top of each other. You're going lightly. By the way, I'm using a 23 bug pin curved mag for all of the shading and color work. Oh, there goes in the yellow. A regular curved mag would have made the shading, the coloring on the flower. I don't think a bug pin mag is ideal for working with color, but I had it out already to do the shading on the chrysanthemum, and it was so fine and smooth. I thought, I'll just go ahead and use this bug pin mag to put the color in. Even though it'll take a little bit longer, they do work so smooth. You just have to allot a little bit extra time to work that color into the skin. But, you know, with the bug pin, it'll stay closer to the surface and should heal up very, very nicely. But, you know, normally when I'm doing color, I don't prefer a bug pin. I would rather just have a normal curved mag, but, you know, I didn't want to break anything else out and any other cartridges out, and this worked perfectly fine. As we add the yellow in, you can see how the browns, the darker tones, soften into the background. If I had used straight black in the shadows or gray wash, it would not have had nearly this nice of an effect. As you can see, the dark brown sort of paves the bridge between the oranges and the really deep shadows that are in the background of the petals. We needed more details on the inside of the sunflower, so I added a bunch of those rusty orange dots. And it is subtle, but you can see that they give the inside of the flower just a little bit of texture. Sunflowers have a lot of texture on the inside, and you can really go ham trying to get in every single detail, but on a piece like this, it just needed the subtle hints. And you can see just adding a little bit of white steps it up a notch in, you know, having some visual interest on the inside of that flower without having to go, you know, spend an hour on making all the little dots perfectly organized. It's just not necessary. Adding the white highlights to the edges of the petals brings us to about the completion of this tattoo. I love adding little white highlights. It just does a something to add a little bit extra dimension to any tattoo. And I just feel like it makes it pop, makes it stand out a little bit more. Here we are completed. And there's the bee. I wish I had had more footage of the bee because he is so adorable, but he was just not in the best location, you know, to be filmed. But thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next week.